Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video about book stuff. Today I was thinking I was going to make a video about, as you can see on the title, my best friend picks 5 books for me to read this month. So I asked my in real life best friend Jeena. She's also a Vtuber, and I will link her stuff down below. And she picked 5 books for me that she thinks I should read this month of April. So I'm going to make this video into 2 parts. This part is going to be her choices and why she chose these books, and it's going to be my expectations of these books, either if I look forward to them or if I'm not looking forward to them. And then the next video is going to be my how was my expectations met, because after the second video I have read the books, so it's going to be me reviewing the books more into probably not into depth of them, but it's going to be me how well did the books meet my expectations, or were they bad as I thought they were going to be. But we will see. She picked rather good books. She told me she had a very hard time to picking books, mostly because she doesn't read as often as she wants anymore. I know when we were younger and in high school she read a lot more than she does now, which is both because she's busy with work and she's been busy with school stuff, university, education and all that. You know, you can't really do everything. But she also find it hard to find a book that she knew I haven't read yet, because most of the books that she have read I most likely also have read, so she had a hard time to pick a book, a favorite book of hers that she wants me to read, because I mostly already read all of them. So she had a hard time to pick them. So I know 2 of the books she picked from my pile of books, which is, mind you, 400 books long. So she went through it and she picked 2 books that she thought sounded interesting, that she wanted me to read because she wanted my opinion on them, and 3 she picked because they meant something to her and I haven't actually read them. But let me tell you about the books that she picked for me. The very first book is Dracula by Bram Stoker. The reason she put was, the reason I picked this book is because I know you want to read the classics and you love horror. This book also has a different format, and I would like to know how well it holds up, or if it's massively overrated, or if the movies are better. They probably aren't, but still. I actually started reading Dracula before I made this video. I have read roughly 70% of the book so far. I know, I can help myself. I thought I had read Dracula before when I was younger, but I think I read like a shorter version of it, because it's not what I expected, and I'm not going to review it here, but I can tell you my expectations of the book. It was going to be, I've seen movies, I've seen readaptations of it, I have seen I read comic books about Dracula, I've read different lore about Dracula, and I have read other vampire books. So my expectations was a lot of action, a lot of creepy sneak stuff going on, and I can tell you now it's not what I expected, and I'm going, not in a bad way, but it's not what I expected. But that's my expectations of the book, or it was my expectations of the book. I'm kind of surprised I haven't read Dracula yet, to be honest. I was pretty sure I had though, but like I said, I think I read like a child version of it when I was younger, and maybe that's why I think I remember I read it. Not sure. Or I read a readaptation of a Dracula story, but not by Bram Stoker, but from someone else. Could also be the case. Not sure. But thank you for that. Really, really nice choice, I gotta say. The second book that she picked was Fire by Christine Cashore. And every time I see her name, this author's name, I laugh because my dyslexia reads this as Cash Whore. And I know that's not her name, but my dyslexia is just reading it that way. And I find it funny. So every time, because it's a very popular author when it comes to teen books, so we always have those books in rotation in the library, so I always have to go to the teenager section and put up a lot of Cash Whore's books, and I'm always like, haha, Cash Whore. Yes, let's be grown up about it. But she wanted me to read specifically the book Fire, and this is her reasoning to this. First fantasy book I picked out. You can pick Graceling by the same author instead if you would like. They are part of a series, but it doesn't matter in which order you read. Graceling is more politicals, and Flame is more family and psychology. This one is probably geared towards a younger reader, but I still find it cozy, and for once it's a healthy love relationship in a fantasy young adult book. Not so much healthy family stuff, but it's still healthy love relationships. I never read anything by Christine Cashore. I kind of stayed away from her together with other young adult fantasy books because I just didn't hear much of it. I will read Flame or Fire or whatever it's called more than Graceling, I think, because Graceling sounds political, and I'm not feeling the political vibe at this moment. I think family and psychology is more my route, so I will pick that one. Thank you for the choice, by the way. I don't really have any expectations to this, more than the fact that 1, I don't really like fantasy, and 2, I don't really like young adults, so my expectations for this book is very, very low. But we will see if I enjoy it, you know? I'm kind of happy hearing it's a healthy love relationship, because most young adults today, and back in the day when we were young, did not have that. It's a lot of toxicity in most young adult books, which is kind of sad. The other book that she recommended is also a fantasy book, and it's Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Never read anything by Robin Hobb before. The biggest reason to that, I know, is like a cult thing and everyone loves it. But the biggest reason is probably because I don't like fantasy, but also because most of the series that he's been writing are very long series, and I find it hard to start a series because then I feel like I have so much work ahead of me and I can't see the ending. I rather read a lot of one-on-one books than dedicating myself to 30 books in a series. I'm just not a series kind of person, and I think that's also the biggest reason why I don't like fantasy, because I always feel like the first book is just the author describing the world and setting up the story, and it's just like the beginning and like the upbringing and the setting of a good story, and then nothing happens until maybe book 2 or 3. And that's why I don't really like about it, because I feel like the stories always get dragged out so much, especially because most of the books are also 600 to 700 pages long, but that's another topic for another day. The reasoning to why Jeena wanted me to read Assassin's Apprentice is second fantasy book I picked out. it's a bit difficult to give you fantasy books since there's so many, and most of them, to be honest, are more or less terrible. See, I'm not alone in that. I really like the setting of this book though, and no book has inspired me to build things in Minecraft like this one in a very long time. I don't think it's up to your standards in descriptions and settings, but still. Yeah, descriptions is like a big thing for me. I love descriptions. Like, description is the best thing. Like, but I don't like descriptions that feels like they are unnecessary. I feel like if you're going to do descriptions, I love reading them, but they have to have a main point, and it has to force the plot along or make the plot go along. Like, I don't want us to stop the plot line just for you to describe a tree for 5 pages. Like, that's not what I like. I like descriptions, but there is a limitations to what I can handle as well. But yes, I do look forward to this. I don't really have any expectations of this more than I know this is a series of 3 books, which is better than the longer books. This have been on my maybe I should read this list, mostly because it's Robin Hobb and it's like a classic fantasy writer. But I just never got into the mood to read it. But you know, now I have a chore to read it, thanks to Jeena. The last 2 books are from my TBR list that Jeena picked out for me, but technically I picked them out, but she picked them out of the 400 books that I want to read myself, because she couldn't come up with other books to suggest for me. And the first one is a Lullaby for Witches by Hester Fox. Her motivation for this is, found this on your TBR and it sounded like something I would like to read as well. I read Witches and instantly got curious. It sounds a bit fantasy-esque, but I'm guessing it's more thriller and horror related. Still found interesting with witches and long lost powers. Yeah, it's funny because when she was like, I found this on your TBR, I was like, what? But then again, I don't remember all the books that are on my TBR because it's a list of 400 books. So I had to look it up and I was like, oh. And I think I added it. I think I saw someone do a list of really good gothic books written by authors today, because I love gothics set in the 1800s. Like, gothic horror is my favorite, and this was one of the books that I said, like, if you like gothic tales and gothic settings in that kind of, like, you know, that you have the vibe of like the gothic vibes, they would recommend this book. I started reading it a little bit after Jeena told me to read it, and I'm not sold yet. I've read 2 chapters and I was like, I don't like the main characters, which is funny because this is a book I picked for myself. Even if she picked it, it's still been on my list, so I feel like I can't hate on it because it's my own fault for reading it. But we will see. My expectations are kind of vague to this one, mostly also because I did read the comments for this book, and the comments was very it follows two witches, one in present time and one in the past tense, back in the day, and neither of these 2, because both of them are witches, but neither of them are likable characters, and nobody found anything in the story that they liked because they could never connect to the characters. And I read 2 chapters and I kind of felt the same way, but I'm going to push through and still read this book because it's on this list. The other book is The House at Baker Street by Michael Birkby. First I was like, hey Jeena, I can't find this book available in our country. I can't get my hands on it. And she was like, but it's on your list. And I was like, yeah, doesn't mean I know it's available for me. But I managed to find it as an ebook, so I'm pretty happy about that. Her motivation to picking this book was, didn't know this thing existed until now. And this book sounds really interesting with the different take on Sherlock Holmes, by having two of the women in his life take the detective mantle instead. Plus Mrs. Hudson is awesome. Yeah, for those people who don't know, this is a Sherlock Holmes re-adaptation or rewritten story, but Mrs. Hudson is the main character of this one. Which is why I added it, because I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan and I read everything Sherlock Holmes related, which is why it's on my list. And you know, I love Mrs. Hudson. Mrs. Hudson is such a sweetheart, yet so weird, you know? So I've been really looking forward to read this book. But I feel like, you know, I have such high expectations of that book because I love Sherlock Holmes and I love the character Miss Hudson, that I'm also a little bit scared of reading this book, because what if it turns out to be the worst book ever and I don't like it? But, you know, if that's the case, it's just like, move along and be happy about it, right? Jeena also added a 6th book. I know she was only going to pick 5 books, but she did pick a 6th book as well, and it was like Get Out of Boring Book card, which is if I didn't like any of the books that she picked for me, I could pick this one instead if I wanted to, but she didn't want to force me to read this book because she knows it's a hard book to read, and it's Journey to the West. The Monkey King book. She also said I could read any shorter version of it, like an Brigade book. And she said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this crazy road trip that is this book. But it's difficult to read and very long, and I know it would take longer than you would like for this video. I don't know. I really want to read this book because it's a very, like, you know, it has so many things for it, and it's actually very packed with action. But also there's a lot of animes based off this book, and a lot of like culture and religious belief comes into play in this book, and it just has so much, and it's a classic for a reason, and I always wanted to read it. But it's like there's so many things happening in this book in every sentence that you get like so overwhelmed while you read it. So even if it's only maybe like 600 pages or whatever, how long it is, it still feels like it takes you so long to read it, because you have to take breaks in between the pages and really think about what it was you read. Which is why Jeena is telling me, I know it's going to take you longer to read this than what you would want, because you can't just read it from page 1 to page 600. Even if I can read 600 pages in one day, and I could probably read this in one day, I still feel like I would not grasp the full idea of the book and everything that I want to absorb through the book and really enjoy the craziness that is in this book fully if I did that. And I think that's why it's such a long read, or how you want to say it. But we will see. If I manage to read these 5 books and I do feel like, hey, I do have some time over and I actually do feel like, you know, adding this to the video for the next part, I'm going to add it in. But if I'm done with these 5 books and I want to read something else for my own pleasure, I will most likely do that as well. I can't tell you how it's going to be in 2-3 weeks and how I feel then, but we do have that as a 6th option, that if we still want to read all 6 books, I can. Otherwise, the first 5 are the ones I'm going to read. And as many of you guys know, I don't DNF books, meaning I don't... I do not finish books. I always finish every book I have ever started. and I will continue to do that. So I told Jeena that don't be worried, like no matter what books you pick for me, I will finish them even if I hate them, and I'm not going to blame you, and I'm not going to be mean to you because it's not your fault that you like bad books. No, I'm sorry, no, it's not what I mean. No, but you know, we all have different sorts of likes and dislikes, and I'm really looking forward to doing this. I also want to do like, because I see it as like a small collab, even if Jeena is not in this video, it's still her thoughts and her book recommendations, and I would love to do this with you guys as well. Like, you know, if you guys feel like, oh hey, I have 5 books I would love for you to read, you could always be like, you know, hey mate, you know, we could do a video together about something like this. Will be really cool. But for April, we're focusing on this and these 5 books. So wish me luck. Hopefully these are good and quality books, but I trust Jeena. Jeena knows what I love, and Jeena has a really good taste in books. So I believe in her. I believe in her picks, and I believe this is going to be one crazy month of reading. Thank you for listening for my rambling, and I hope to see you all soon again. Much kisses. Mwah. Mwah.